Greetings. Today we begin the third picture of doom that Jude brings to our attention in Jude verse 7. That is Sodom and Gomorrah. It says, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. This is the third example of God's judgment upon apostasy, which Jude mentions. And these three are consistently set forth by the biblical writers as examples, negative examples for us to avoid. Three pictures of doom. Jude 5 gave us Israel, which talked about the root cause of apostasy, an evil heart of unbelief, which then leads to the second one, represented by the angels, the departing act of apostasy, that is abandoning their own habitation, that is abandoning the place that God had planned and designed for us to dwell. And the third one then is Sodom and Gomorrah, the five cities of the plain, which represents the imminent judgment upon disobedience. They're set forth an example, suffering a punishment of eternal fire. I say, since they're so common, that it would be easy for us to pass over them as mundane. But each time one of these is called to our remembrance, we must understand. Colossians 3:25 says, but he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he hath done, and there is no respect of persons with God. Ecclesiastes 8:11 told us that because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the hearts of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. We need to listen closely to the message of these two verses. It's not the matter of being found guilty or innocent. Rather, it is the delay in the guilty serving the sentence that prompts men to fully set their hearts to do evil. Jude 7 literally says, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the like manner cities around them, they indulged in excessive immorality and went after different, that is, unnatural flesh. They're set forth an example, suffering a punishment of eternal fire. We will examine this verse and the corresponding history in Genesis chapter 13 through 19 under 4 points. The place, historically and geographically, the pollution, the perversion, and then the punishment. So let's look at the place. Genesis 13:10 says, and Lot lifted up his eyes, and behold, all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east. And they, Abraham and Lot, separated themselves the one from the other. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. Verse 13 of Genesis 13 says, but the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. First and foremost, we should note that there's no mention of Lot consulting God. Rather, he made his decision on the basis of, quote, the lifting up of his eyes. In other words, Lot was walking by sight, not by faith, as was Abraham. This area is referenced here as the plain of Jordan. Now, it didn't take us long in geography classes in school to learn the difference between a plain and a valley. There was a time when there was a plain of Jordan, a flat land by the river of Jordan. It's the reference to then what has become the Jordan River Valley, being situated there between two sets of foothills or mountains. This becomes the vale or the valley of Sodom or Sodom. Notice it was a well-watered plain everywhere, as the garden of God, Eden, and as Zoar of Egypt. That is the land of Goshen, as later we find Joseph and his brethren dwelling there. Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, Genesis 13:11 says. Then he journeys east from Bethel and Ai and the Jericho area over the mountains to this plain that was to become a valley. Further, Genesis 13:12 adds that he pitched his tent toward Sodom. But note the disclaimer upon these cities. It's almost like Moses, under inspiration, could not wait until the 18th and 19th chapters of Genesis to reveal the wickedness of these cities. The best of the land occupied by the worst sinners. It says these men were exceedingly wicked and exceeding sinners before the Lord. In Genesis 14, we find that there were 5 cities that were referred to as the cities of the plain. In Genesis 14:2, it says that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and Bersha, king of Gomorrah, and Sidnab, the king of Admah, and Semebed, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zor. These cities with their kings rebelled against Chedorlaomer, the Syrian ruler, after 12 years of being under his tributary, according to verse 4 of Genesis 14. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year, Chedorlaomer comes to squash the rebellion, which he does, according to Genesis 14:5. And we'll continue there tomorrow.